Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. This podcast has evolved over the 5+ years since it first launched. From now on, I'm going to be talking about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. And also mindset, of course, but mindset of all kinds, not just business mindset. I think. Things are changing for me, as you may have noticed if you've been following me online or listening to this podcast, so anything goes here. I hope you stay along for the ride. Thank you so much for joining us today, and now let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 342. This is your host, Holly Worton, and I'm back with another solo episode. Today, I'm going to talk about finding and following the breadcrumbs in your life. This episode was inspired by a reading that I recently got that Joanna Hennon did for me from Brighid, or Breed, as her name is properly pronounced in Irish. So Brighid is an energy, a being, a goddess that I used to connect with. I used to work with her quite a bit, and I still have a shrine to her in my office. It's been a long time since I tuned in. It's been a long time since I did any channeling. It's been a long time since I connected with her at all. So when Joanna put out this offer, which I'll link to in the show notes, when she put out an offer for this reading, I instantly jumped at it because I really like the energy of Brighid, and I wanted to see what she had to say to me, especially since it had been so long since I connected with her. And her message was very useful, very practical, very focused. Gave me a lot of really good information about my path forward. But the first paragraph is the one that I want to read to you now. So in this, she says to me, "You know that our work together isn't done. It won't be done until you accept that your path is to bring back a connection to the earth, to nature, but not in the woo-woo sense, in the practical sense. Your work with the healing power of plants, your work with the feeling the power of the earth and magical places, your desire to grow things and to communicate with the nature around you, your walking, these are your breadcrumbs. Follow them and they will keep leading you towards the expression of your authentic true self." So, that was super clear and very, very useful because I feel like for the last 10 years of my life, I've been following breadcrumbs, but in a very haphazard way. So in today's episode, I want to help you identify what are the breadcrumbs in your life so that you can see them more quickly and clearly and easily and follow them so that you can start living a more fulfilling life. It's taken me such a long time to get to where I am today, and I'm finally at a place where things really feel like they're coming together, and they really feel like I've got a much clearer sense of my path. And this message from Brighid totally confirms it. But before we get into today's episode, I wanted to say a huge thank you to Lisa, new patron on Patreon. Thank you so much for joining. And I really appreciate your support. And if you, listener, feel like you get value from this podcast, I would love to have you support me over at Patreon. If you head to patreon.com/Holly Worton, you can join me there. You get different things at different levels, whether that's access to my monthly Q&A or access to all of my ebooks or even printed copies of my books. Things are available to you, and I would love to have your support. I really enjoy putting out this podcast each week. It is a significant investment of my time and also some money, so it feels very nourishing to receive support from my listeners. So I really, really appreciate that to all of my patrons and to all of my new patrons who are coming. So back to the episode. So according to Brighid, I just wanted to run through that list of breadcrumbs that she kind of listed out for me. So the first thing she said was the healing power of plants. So to me, my work with the healing power of plants kind of intensified over the last year, not only through some retreats that I did for my own personal healing, working with certain sacred plants, but also the shamanic plant spirit healing apprenticeship that I did last year and that I'm going to be continuing on I don't know if it's the advanced version, but kind of the second phase of that journey this year. And I'm really looking forward to that. It starts in May. So working with the healing power of plants has been an important part of my life. And that's something that's really shifted from the pure mindset work that I was doing over the past few years. Mindset is still very important to me. It's been an important part of my journey. And I'm working with it in different ways through working with plant spirits and also plants themselves. So that's kind of the evolution of the way I work with myself and perhaps with other people in the future. We shall see. She also said, my work with feeling the power of the earth in magical places. So if you've read my book, If Trees Could Talk, you know how important Avebury is to me. The energies have been shifting there, and I no longer feel the strong connection that I once had with that area. But it has been a massively, massively important part of my life for the past 3 years, I would say, since I walked the Ridgeway in mid-2016. I am feeling a really kind of, keeps popping into my head, and I'm feeling a really strong kind of calling to it. So I feel like I need to revisit Avebury, even though the energies are changing. So my sense of feeling the power of the earth in magical places has also been a really important part of my life, and it's something that I want to continue to work with and continue to understand. So that's a clear breadcrumb. But again, it's very useful to have this kind of shown to me and clearly explained to me. Next breadcrumb, my desire to grow things. I've always liked gardening, but I have this really, really strong desire to have my own vegetable garden. It's something that I grew up with as a child. My parents always grew vegetables and fruit. We had fruit trees. And I really, really would like to have my own vegetable garden. And I know, we're renting where we live. We could get an allotment. I don't yet have time for this. So I'm aware that my desire to grow my own food isn't definitely not going to happen this year with all the things that I have going on. But it is a very strong desire that I have, and it keeps showing up in the novel that I'm writing, which I think I've mentioned to you a couple of times on this podcast. The novel is not part of my plans for 2020. It's not part of my goals. It's kind of my side hobby that's going on in the background. But the characters in that novel have a very strong connection to the earth, and they grow their own food. So I've been doing a lot of investigation and research on that, and I'm really, really enjoying it. So, my desire to grow things. My desire to communicate with the nature around me. Well, if you've read or if you've heard me talk about my book, If Trees Could Talk, you know that communicating with nature is a very important part of my life. It's something that I haven't been doing as often lately because I haven't been going on my walks. The way I do my walks is kind of changing. Rather than doing my weekly one-day walks, I have some longer walks planned for this year, which leads me to the next breadcrumb, my walking. Again, that's changing, but I've got 2 new walking books planned for this year, not to release this year, but to start writing. And I will be walking in different countries this year, in addition to England. And I will also be releasing a second edition of my South Downs Way book, which I'm really, really excited about. So these are my breadcrumbs. As I said, it's really helpful to have these spelt out for me very clearly and listed out for me because it's taken me such a long time to get to this point. It's taken me a long time because I, came from a place where I didn't really know myself. I had to get to know myself. I had to fumble around in the dark before I kind of found my way. So let's use myself as an example. I got here by realizing that plants were important to me, and I just started doing things that I liked with plants. So I started growing my own flowers and things in my garden. I started working with plants for healing by signing up for these retreats that I've gone on. I signed up for the shamanic plant spirit healing apprenticeship. I just started paying attention to things that were on my radar and signing up for them. Even before I signed up for the Shamanic Plant Spirit Healing Apprenticeship, I started going to the Plant Spirit Initiation Days that Sanit was holding. I'm going to link to her in the show notes so that you can see her website. But I just started signing up for things that piqued my interest. Last year when I did the plant identification for wild food and medicine course through the woodcraft school, that was something that I don't even know how I came across it online, but it just instantly piqued my interest and I signed up for it and I loved it. I just absolutely love that course, and I'm doing 2 more courses with them this year. So once you find something you like, keep going with it. And my work with feeling the power of the earth in magical places, that's something that happened really quite by accident when I walked the Ridgeway and I did kind of a circular walk around Avebury, which is the first time I went there. And I went into West Kennet Longbarrow for the first time and I felt the energy there so strongly that I went back the next morning before I actually started on the Ridgeway. And then I kept feeling compelled to going back there and walking in the area, and I just responded, and I kept doing it until I really built a relationship with the area. That's something that, again, it happened quite by accident, but I felt that call and I responded. So this is another thing. It's actually taking action. So when you find that first breadcrumb, keep walking, keep looking, keep feeling until you find the next one. With my work and communicating with nature around me, that's something that, again, it came to me in an Akashic Records reading that I got from Vicky Young, and it was where the Akashic Records keepers encouraged me to start talking to the trees. I started, and I just kept doing it. There was a lull for a while where I wasn't doing it, but then I kept doing my nature walks and I kept being out in nature and being among trees. And then I saw that meetup group for the forest bathing. And then it just got to the point where, I had that conversation with the yew tree that gave me the idea for the book. So it was, again, following the breadcrumbs that got me to this point where I am today with that. And walking, I've always enjoyed walking ever since I was a teenager. And when I moved to England, I found that walking book in Waterstones and bought it and started walking and then just kept going. And that's led me to my love of doing longer walks. So how can you identify the breadcrumbs in your life? How do you see the breadcrumbs? So to me, it's about just paying attention to the things that pique your attention, paying attention to the things that call you, paying attention to the things that keep popping into your head, whether it's an image of something, whether it's a word, whether it's a feeling, whether it's music, a song, whether it's a color, whatever it is, pay attention to the stuff that keeps popping into your awareness and write it down. Journaling can be really helpful with this because it helps you to see the patterns. I find it really hard, without writing things down, to kind of see the things that have shown up over the years and over the months and over the weeks as patterns in my life. But when I go back through my journals, and this is the important thing also, is to kind of go back and flip through them, and you don't have to read every page, but kind of browse through them and see what comes up for you, what things you notice. Highlight the keywords. So it's about just being aware and paying attention of the things that feel good, that sound good, that smell good, that taste good, that register as pleasant, pleasurable, enticing. The things that you're drawn to, the things that call you like a magnet. Pay attention to those things, write them down, and then take little steps. My first step on working with the plant spirits was not signing up for that apprenticeship. It was signing up for, every once in a while, a 1-day plant spirit healing initiation. The first step for me in signing up for all the courses that I've signed up for this year with the Woodcraft School was signing up for that 5-day course last year. And now I'm on 2 new programs for this year. So there's a lot that you can do. There's a lot that you can accomplish by just paying attention to the things that call you. Pay attention to the things that catch your eye. Write them down. that helps you to see the breadcrumbs in your life. And then the next important step is to take action. Take action to take the first steps to follow those breadcrumbs. Again, a lot of the things that I'm talking about involve an investment of money. They also involve an investment of time. So make a list once you see a breadcrumb. So like outdoors classes, make a list of all the different things that you could do. Some things are expensive, some things are less expensive. You can sign up. A lot of meetup groups are like $5 a meeting. Some of them are $1 a meeting. So go on meetup.com and find events or things that are related to the breadcrumbs in your life and start going to those things. That's a very inexpensive way. And then another thing that I like to do is I use Evernote to create lists of classes and courses and workshops and things that I want to do. Maybe I can't afford them right now, or maybe I don't have time to do them right now. Maybe they don't fit into my calendar, but I want to do them at some point. So I copy and paste the link into a list so that every year when I'm signing up for stuff, I can go to that list and see what the highest priorities are. And I think that creating this habit of following the breadcrumbs, when I say take action, again, taking action could be adding something to your list. You don't have to actually go out and take the class this weekend. But taking action on those breadcrumbs builds up your breadcrumb muscle. And it makes it easier for you to see and follow those breadcrumbs in your life. It's like I talk about in my business intuition book. The more you pay attention to your intuition, the more you take action on the wisdom that your intuition gives you, the easier it is for you to listen to your intuition and hear the messages that it gives you in the future. So in the same way there's kind of an intuition muscle, I think there's also a breadcrumb muscle. So the more you pay attention to this, the more you kind of heighten your awareness and train yourself to not only see the breadcrumbs, but take action on them, the easier it will be to see them in the future. And again, taking action on your breadcrumbs does not necessarily mean signing up to the next 5 classes you find online. Maybe you have the time and money to do that. Great. But another action could be adding links to those classes to your list of classes you want to take. Could be spending 5 minutes on Meetup, finding new meetup groups that are related to your breadcrumbs and subscribing or joining those groups and subscribing to updates so that you find out when they're holding new meetups. So don't feel like you have to go out and do a bunch of things and spend a bunch of money right away. It's taking action. It can be very, very simple. And I think the next thing that's important for me to cover is how to know when you're on the right path. I would say it's when synchronicities start happening, when you start finding similar things that appeal to you. When I went on my first retreat last year, working with sacred plants, I started talking to people and I started learning about new things. And then I went on another retreat over New Year's and I kept meeting new people and finding new things and new ways of working with people and new ways of healing. And it kept leading me to new things and new healing plants that I want to work with this year. So when you see things starting to line up as a result of taking that first step to follow the breadcrumbs, that's when you kind of see more breadcrumbs on the path. And sometimes you don't, actually most of the time, I think, for me at least, I don't see the full path. It's not like I see a line of breadcrumbs. I usually just see the next breadcrumb. And so I follow that. And then I see the next one and I follow that. And for me, at least, that can be really, really frustrating because I like to see the whole path. And so it's frustrating when I can't. But I have come to learn that that's part of life. At least that's how it works for me. I just take one step and then I see which direction the next one needs to go in. And I really do believe that following these breadcrumbs in my life have led me to the point where I am today, where things are really feeling like they're coming together. I said this a couple of weeks ago when my new website went live. It really feels like such a coherent, aligned, representation of who I am right now and what I do right now. I actually just went into the back end of my website yesterday morning and I just trashed a bunch of old pages based on, the one-to-one work that I used to do, because I'm not doing that work now. And if I ever start doing that again, I want to start with a fresh slate. I want to start with a fresh web page within my site. And I've been doing a lot of decluttering. And so in the same way that, I trashed a bunch of old pages on my website, and that kind of is making space for new things, because as I pare things down, it gives me clarity on my focus and my vision for the future. So decluttering things, I've had this really kind of compulsive need to declutter lately. I went through my wardrobe, I decluttered 4 bags of clothes that either didn't fit anymore or that I'm just not wearing, sent them to the charity shop, went up into the loft, pulled down some bags of stuff that I could just go in the trash. I'm getting rid of things. And in paring down and getting rid of stuff in your life, that, for me at least, helps me open up to new things, not necessarily stuff, but new experiences. And it helps me kind of have the clarity of vision to see new experiences or new opportunities come my way. So decluttering, I keep mentioning it. It keeps coming up because it's such an important thing to do. So if you're feeling kind of that impulsive urge or need to declutter things, do it. Go through your kitchen and throw out old stuff that maybe is expired, or old spices that you never use, or I don't know, go through your house room by room and declutter stuff. It's really, really freeing. It's really, really satisfying. And I believe it will help you to see the breadcrumbs in your life, even though it's kind of not a very logical step, decluttering and following the path in your life. But I think it works. It works for me. And I don't think it's surprising that I've been having this really kind of compulsive need to declutter things lately. So questions to ask yourself so that you can kind of get tuned into finding the breadcrumbs. Like, what's important to you? What do you enjoy doing? What sounds like fun to you? What have you always wanted to do? What's on your bucket list? What do you do when you procrastinate? Like, what's the little thing that you love doing? Maybe it's reading a book or going outside and doing some gardening. I don't know. Like, pay attention to the things that you do when you procrastinate. And sometimes those are just time waster things, like going on social media or playing games on your phone. But sometimes it's a sign to the stuff that you really love. So pay attention to the things that just catch your eye, the things that keep popping into your mind, and write those down. I can't stress this enough. Getting this stuff out of your head and onto paper or into a file on your computer is really, really the best way forward in terms of documenting this stuff so that you can see the trends and you can follow the trends and you can walk the path of your breadcrumbs. Oftentimes there are multiple breadcrumbs and multiple paths. So as I was reading, my list of breadcrumbs from Brighid, there were 5 different things there. And I think there's one thing that wasn't on there, which is my writing. But I think that's because she knows I'm pretty solid on my writing path right now. And what she needed to do was bring me back to my nature path rather than my business path, because I have been focused on my business books as of late, since I'm releasing second editions of all those books. So those are my thoughts on how to find and follow the breadcrumbs in your life. I would love to hear from you. I would love to get an email from you, holly@hollyworton.com. Feel free to send me an email when you get off this episode and let me know, what are the breadcrumbs? Like, what are the top 5 breadcrumbs you think you have in your life right now? I would love to hear what your breadcrumbs are, because obviously they're going to be very, very, very different for everyone. So take action today, whether or not you choose to share your breadcrumbs with me. I would like to challenge you to find your top 5 breadcrumbs in your life. And what is one action you could take for each breadcrumb. That's what I'm going to leave you with today. And please, if you feel like sharing that with me, I would really, really love to hear it. So that is all for now. Please drop me a line. Let me know what you thought of this week's episode. Again, you can email me at holly@hollyworton.com or find me online and get in touch there. Again, I would love for you to join me on Patreon. If you head to patreon.com/hollywharton, you can join me there. Membership starts at just $1 a month, and you get exclusive access to stuff I don't share anywhere else. Thank you for listening. If you have not yet subscribed to this podcast, I would love for you to do so. And I'm aware that I just gave you like 9,000 calls to action in the last minute and a half. So the last thing I'm going to suggest you do is to visit hollywharton.com/342 for the show notes on this episode. So if there's anything I mentioned that you thought, oh, I missed that, I want to write that down, I want to find that link, it's all in the show notes. And in about a week or two, the transcript for this episode will also go up online. So that is all. Have a fantastic week, and please let me know what your breadcrumbs are. I would love to hear it. So happy breadcrumb hunting. Have a great week. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.